Hi, Chase here at Cole McCoy coming to you with episode number 37 of the EFES In The Trenches podcast, video, show, whatever you want to call it. We are excited here, coming fresh off of our trip to Rhode Island. We had a lot of people in a room. This big guy right here was doing a lot of training, a lot of hand-holding, and it was awesome to be a part of. Cole, my man, how was the trip? How much fun did you have?
Man, it was cold. No, it was great, man. Anytime you can get producers of that caliber in a room, you better have a pen and paper handy, man. I mean, from 15, 20 to, a couple guys doing 40 grand a month in that room, just sewing into the people there and giving knowledge. Man, it was pretty powerful just to see the all hands on deck, just willing to help out and jump in. And man, I had a great time as well. We definitely had some fun.
We tabulated up, and on the low end, Ben Bowman was kind of messing with me a little bit about tabulating on the low end instead of pumping it up like a lot of other groups would. We tabulated up a little over 15 million is what we projected was in that room in just personal production as your teachers, your educators, and your speakers at that event. That was super, super cool for me selfishly to see, you guys to be able to do your thing, sharing your tips and tricks and your wisdom with everybody. And then it was an honor to be able to MC it, and just a bunch of killers in the room. And then the group chat blowing up afterwards for everybody in attendance saying, man, I appreciate this so much, learned so much.
Yeah.
That was cool. So can't wait for the next one. Where is the next one? It's going to be none other than in Dallas, Texas. So we've got a tentative date set. We can't announce it just yet, but we'll tell you, if you're looking at attending, whether you're with EFES, the nation welcomes you. This is not a recruiting event for us. It is a training event, an all boats rise type event where we welcome you to come in, get better, and learn from some of the best in the business. You're looking at first week, first half of September. We will have a definitive date that will be shared in EFES Nation, both through YouTube as well as Facebook. So stay tuned. We'll get that to you guys. But coming to you today with episode number 37. I know when you left the event, Cole, you knew exactly what you wanted to talk about today. You knew it to a T, and you already had tons of notes written down by the time you had landed, I'm sure. But we're going to talk today about, being able to, when you're presenting, visiting with a client, being able to run a system here and understand the system so that you're able to run it efficiently. And it's pertaining to, for those out there that are tuning in, pertaining to how you pitch, most importantly, how you present to the client those options that are going to be best for you. We've already got the gold, silver, bronze in the background with you there. So, Cole, let's kick it off, man. Dealing with misconceptions is something that we talked about during our prep. When you are presenting and you're running this system to make sure that you are giving the best options out there, share with us what you mean when we talk about dealing with the misconceptions in this part of the training.
Absolutely. So whenever you talk about average premium in the final expense industry, the number I sincerely believe is egregiously low. And there's a lot of reasons to that, but you'll hear people talk about what is industry average as far as premium goes. And it hovers somewhere between $50 and $55 a month in premium. And personally, I think that there's a lot of symptoms that can be diagnosed to help correct that. But what's happening there is you have agents that maybe probably have a slew of things going on that maybe they need some correction on. I know my personal average, it's not like a couple hundred a month or anything, but it's somewhere between $72 and $75 a month. And I feel like that's a very strong average. But it has nothing to do with any extra special skill set that I have or any magic sauce that I'm bringing to the table. It simply comes down to following and selling to a system. And so I really wanted to break that down because as we were doing some training in Rhode Island, some questions about this came up. And I think it's really helpful for maybe a newer agent to look at and plug into, because this can help you make not just a little bit more money, but if you look at somebody who writes, let's just say it's 100 apps a year, the difference between $50 a month and $70 a month you're looking $240
Yep.
in annual premium. That's $24,000 of annual premium that you can gain by not doing anything differently other than showing proper numbers and following a system. And so I wanted to break this down, give some tips and tricks on what I'm doing, and honestly, other successful producers are doing as well, to just help you in that conversation and, really helping guide your clients along to not only protect their family most effectively, but also, put them in a position to, a lot of times, let's just call it what it is, they're going to pick the lowest number you show them. How often are we as agents prejudging or whatever and not following a system just because we let emotion get in the way? So I'm excited to delve into this topic. It's not a sexy topic by any means, but I promise you, if you follow a system like this, you will make a lot more money.
Yeah, don't short sell yourself. We've personally found at the event, we talked about it, as you mentioned, and we had a few people that were helped by this particular topic, especially where they found themselves dinging $340, $420. They were dinging smaller sales, and it's all revolving around this topic here, and that was a fix for them. They're putting it into action now. Let's jump into, first and foremost, just how to show so your numbers grow. How do we get into showing correctly? We're going to kind of get a peek into your mind real quick. You've got the gold, silver, bronze behind you. Let's kick it off, man. How do you properly show to make sure you're not short selling yourself?
Yeah. So for me, Chase, I just follow a system, and we can get into some other stuff with prejudging and things like that. But every single time, without exception, I'm selling to a premium. I'm not selling to necessarily what that client is saying that they want or need. Because I'll go over some of the arguments as well, but I keep it extremely simple. I like the gold, silver, bronze model. And so my bronze is typically somewhere between $60 and $70, but not lower than 60. My silver is typically between $80 or $90, but not lower than 80. And then my gold is typically around $100, $110. That's for a single person. If you're dealing with couples, I'm showing, somewhere between 80 and 95 here, showing 100 to 120 here, and then I'm showing 140 to 160 on the gold. I do that every time without exception. And, it doesn't matter if I'm in a shanty where the floor is falling through or if I'm in a mansion. I'm showing these types of premiums, and then I'm letting their responses kind of dictate where the conversation goes. But here's the reality. A lot of people are just going to pick the bronze plan because that's the lowest number that we show them. And that's just what it is. And then what happens is maybe 6 months down the road, you go back to them, they pick the bronze, and they'll still pay another $40, $50 a month, just because that's the least number that you showed them. And, in their minds, they're thinking that's the lowest one I can get, but I'm still protecting my family. And that's the mindset of a lot of our clients, for sure.
Well, you touched on something that I think is powerful for those tuning in and watching right now. Do not go in with a preconceived notion based off of the door you knocked, the house, the way it looks. There are many, many people that we work with and have worked with over the years that will tell you, if you go in judging a book by the cover, what does a house look like? What does a car look like in the driveway? You're making a grave mistake. And it's not your job to use your eyes to decide how much premium is going to come out of the home, how much they can afford. You do that with your ears, not your eyes. And that's a big point that you just made, and then you also made it in Rhode Island. There's a lot of people that will get in their own head when they see a house that maybe isn't a mansion, and they go in thinking, man, this is going to be terrible. They're already in their own way. Same thing with what you mentioned as well regarding a nice house. I'm going to kill it. They can definitely afford $100 a month. That's not your job. Your job is to assess the situation, make sure that you're showing the correct premiums. Now, statistically, they show that when it comes to the gold, silver, bronze, the three options, that they're going to choose the one in the middle. We do find, I'm with you, that they typically choose the one towards the end. But to one of the points that you made just a moment ago, we know a gentleman, it was brought up at the event, that does more of a higher end top down selling method where, can you afford $250 to $300 a month? that works for some people. It does not work for most. It takes a unique individual to pull that one off. With your system, I think everybody can use it. Ben put this together a while back. You've really perfected it. I think this method right now, for those listening, can really be adopted by pretty much anybody. So let's jump into how the 60, 80, 100 really works, how you present it, so that everybody out there understands it.
Absolutely. So you'll notice on here, I didn't put any kind of face amount, and I did that for a reason, because I'm looking at this person, and no matter how much the face amount is, I'm showing them 60, I'm showing them 80, and I'm showing them $100. And what will happen is, if this is a person that really can't afford it, but they genuinely want to talk about insurance, they'll look at this number and they'll talk you down a little bit. But if I'm showing $30 or $40, there's really not a whole lot of room to talk somebody down.
Right.
And if I'm also dealing with somebody that wants to have a lot more insurance and their premium tolerance is a lot more than the $100 to $110, they'll tell you. And so what this system does is it really it shows tolerable amounts without it being a little bit crazy for them. And so that's just my philosophy and the system that I use. And it may sound a little bit cold or detached from the client. Well, Cole, why aren't you selling them what they need? Well, I am selling them what they need, because it only matters to them and their families if they're able to keep it. So I want to start off with something that I know that they can pay for, or they believe sincerely that they can pay for. And then we can build on top of that, but we at least need to get a foundation in place to go forward. And so, there's a couple different sides of the spectrum here. You have the 50-year-old lady who's very healthy, doesn't smoke. $60 is going to be a lot more coverage than maybe a 78 or 79-year-old male smoker. And so what I have to do, and this is your job as a salesman or saleswoman, is to step into that situation and articulate why they need more than just what like a $5,000 cremation would cost. Because you have to talk about inflation when you're dealing with a younger person. Miss Mary, your life expectancy realistically is, somewhere between 80 and 85. How much was a gallon of gas when you started driving? And a lot of times they'll laugh or chuckle, and, you'll get anywhere between a quarter and $1, Well, exactly. I think I paid $2.69 this morning. That goes to show you that over time, things get more expensive. And you can pull out stats like inflation. I think it's like 3.5% a year is the way that our money inflates. You can pull out things, something that's relatable to them. When you were X amount of years old, how much did you pay for a gallon of milk or a loaf of bread, or what was your car payment or whatever? Just find something relatable so that way they can visualize and feel that inflation. Now, look, Miss Mary, $5,000, yes, that would technically cover you today, but you also need to prepare your family for when that worst time happens, and the likelihood is that it's going to be another 30 to 35 years. So what we need to do is actually look at, for $60 a month, we need to look at something closer to $20,000 or $25,000, whatever it is for that person and the carrier that you're choosing to use. Using those tools is very, very helpful. And you say, look, Miss Mary, as you know, over time, things get more expensive. Wouldn't you want to cover the inflation now instead of having to pay for it later, where it's not guaranteed you're going to get it? Using those types of lines is very helpful. And if they can afford it, they're going to do it most of the time, for sure.
Yeah, and one of the things we talked about at the event, we talk about in our training, is that we are not here to spend their money or dictate what they can afford to a certain extent. We find out what the budget is, we find out what the need is, and then we make the correct assessment from there. Too often, to the whole point of this, if those numbers on your board were lower, too often we find agents saying, well, when I walked in, the house wasn't, looked like this. I just went ahead and put 50, 30, and 20 or, 10 on there. And they short sell themselves. And it's because they're doing kind of prejudging instead of doing what's right for them. And that's one thing I've noticed being in the car with you, hearing you do your trainings along with all of the other builders we work with, you guys do a fantastic job of making sure that you are there to take care of the client. Now, spending their money for them, doing what's best for them, making sure that they understand we're getting you the best vehicle possible, that is objective number one. And you just went over selling, the difference of selling the 60, 80, 100 to younger versus your little bit older clientele, which is huge. It's important.
Well, I think there's some things in the older person I definitely would want to articulate as well. But
yeah, we want to go into that. So when you guys are taking notes right now, like this is, understand that the topic of discussion right now is, there is a transition, understanding that you're talking to a younger person or an older person and understanding how you navigate through. So going to the older person, Cole, fire away, man.
Yeah. So when you're dealing with older people, you're typically going to have a lot more health issues. It's, if they're a smoker, the premiums can seem exponential at times, the growth. But how you want to sell these people is still stick to the 60, 80, 100 method. And what you're doing is, even the $100 may not be a sexy number, but you have to talk to them about what they can afford. And you want to use terms like, Miss Mary, my job is to fight for you. I could definitely show you something that's a lot more, but to be honest, are you able to afford more? And if they tell you, yes, no problem, well, yeah, let's have that conversation. But if they say, look, I don't know how I'm even going to afford this, or, I don't think I could squeeze much more than this 60 or 80 bucks. Well, now it's your job to sell them. And it's not just selling them for the sake of selling. It's being realistic with them and educating them on how the funeral industry works a little bit. You're not a funeral home director, but you can give them some resources and tools to use to where maybe that $7,000 would be enough. And so there are different things that you can access, things like if you look at caskets, for instance, at a funeral home, you're typically not going to see anything less than $1,500 to $1,000. Sometimes $2,000 is the lowest price casket that you're going to find. I would say this in your phone. And I don't make any money for giving these people shine, but there's a website called overnightcaskets.com. You can get caskets for $500-600, and they'll ship it overnight. And the funeral home, they have to take it. You could technically go on to Walmart.com and get a pine box for like $200, $300. So if that's something that is important to them, to have a nice casket or whatever, just kind of show them some options in there. You'll be surprised. There are some pretty nice options in the overnightcaskets.com. You also maybe articulate to them the most expensive part of a funeral is usually renting the chapel. The rate is most of the ones that I've seen are around $2,000 per hour to rent that chapel out to, or the funeral home kind of meeting place to facilitate any kind of services or viewings or whatever. And so showing them, hey, is there another place, maybe the VFW hall, or maybe your church or whatever. Again, you don't want to be a funeral home director, but you want to make them aware $7,000 should be more than enough. If you and your family call me, we can help you navigate some of this stuff. And so that's always super duper important to make sure that they know, one, that they have your cell phone. I give my people my cell phone number. If they need to make a claim or they're having trouble with getting something figured out, they know and they can call me. And that not only helps them for the most difficult decisions for their families, but that's also a powerful tool for referrals, because when their family needs something, they're going to call you because they know that you can go above and beyond to help them. So just a couple little tips and tricks, I think, for the older person, helping them navigate those things and understanding that, it's not as much coverage as you would like to leave, but we can make sure that it's enough, is super important.
Something's better than nothing. We talk about that all the time. You want to be able to leave something behind, and I love how you educate them, and then you also let them know that you're knowledgeable. It kind of puts their mind at ease, kind of lets them breathe a sigh of relief that they're talking to somebody that knows their stuff, and that's there to help them. So I love that. Also, another thing that this whole thing kind of revolves around getting out of your comfort zone. If you're kind of passive, one thing I've noticed about Cole's a big teddy bear, super sweet guy, would never do anything to hurt anybody. But at the same time, you do kind of ratchet it up a little bit when it's needed. If you're getting some objections, you're not disrespectful or anything like that, but you're not going to get run over. And with what we're about to go into next, which is capturing premium in replacement situations, this whole thing encapsulates somebody that needs to be kind of be aggressive. And I don't mean loud. I don't mean disrespectful. But whenever you're about to get a big deal or the premium's going to be a big premium, you need to be even more aggressive. I know that I kind of get fired up in those type of situations. Let's talk now about capturing premium in replacement situations and how it coincides with our topic today.
Yeah, I think the word that I would prefer to use is assumptive, while being cool as a cucumber. You want them, the aggression that you're feeling is probably going to be in your chest, where your heart's beating out, where your heart's just going a mile a minute, because it's we're all guilty of this, where we can think about a paycheck while we're writing an app. It's just, we know how much money we're going to make from making a sale. You have to be willing to put that aside to not only go and fight for your client and put them in a great situation, but you want them to feel like you've done this a million times and that's just no big deal. And so you want to be assumptive. So when you're capturing premium, if you have somebody that you're showing these numbers to that they want to go higher, oh, awesome, Miss Mary. A lot of my clients feel the same way. These are just the numbers that I was supposed to show you. But here's what $200, $160 and $140 would do for you and your family. Which one works best for you? And at that point, whatever answer they give you, go with it. And, I would say if you're writing those higher premiums, you definitely want to, when you're getting much over $100, do a good bit of tie downs to make sure that that is affordable for them and that is what they want to do, that they're not just doing that and they're going to cancel as soon as you leave. Like, you definitely want to be diplomatic on how you're handling those situations, but just being assumptive and not budging, I think is huge on that. The other thing is capturing all the premium and replacement situations. That's typically an easier conversation to have, Chase, because let's say that they're paying $220 a month for their family. They've probably been paying that premium for a while. They already budgeted out. It's already something that they're used to. They honestly thought that you were coming to get them to buy more insurance. And so actually what I'll do when I'm doing a replacement situation is I'll do a gold, silver, and bronze type package. What the bronze is what they're currently paying. And even in that situation, how much more coverage that they're getting. Are you there, bud? Sorry, my thing went out.
Yep,
you got me?
Yep.
Sorry, my phone went out. But when you're in that situation, I'm showing the bronze as what they've been paying, but how much more coverage they're getting. Can you hear me?
Yep, got you. The hotline's
my phone is being really weird. Yeah, our agent hotline. Someone's in the house needs some help, and hopefully someone's answering. I'm sorry if that was you and we hung up on you. I didn't mean to. I promise. The silver is going to be here's a little bit more money, and here's how much more coverage, and so on and so forth. And so in that situation, I'm just the lowest option is going to be at least getting the same amount of premium that they were already paying. And then at the end of the day, if they're like, look, I was actually thinking about canceling this because it's unaffordable, then you can show them the option of, well, I can get you the same amount of coverage you have now, and here's the premium. But I'm not really even showing them that until they make it clear that has become unaffordable for their lifestyle or whatever. So I like to use the word assumptive. Aggressive is something I don't know that anybody could describe me as, but I'm still, putting my foot on the gas pedal and taking control for sure.
Yeah, and aggressive may have been a wrong word to pull out of the vernacular. I say aggressive, just the point is don't start to cower in that situation. Don't shy away from a situation when there's a big premium. It's no different than if you got the ball in your hand at the end of the game, take your shot. Be ready for that moment because it's a big moment. And if we encapsulate this entire call today, Cole will put a bow on it in a moment. I would tell you that as an agent, two things here. Number one, you are doing your client a disservice if you are going in timid and meek and not trying to get them the most coverage possible. At the end of the day, I don't think there's ever been a family who's had a loved one pass away and they received too much left behind based off of insurance. I don't think anybody's ever been upset by that. I think they've been more upset by not having enough left behind. So help your client understand the need and why it's important to get it taken care of. And then number two, as Cole mentioned before at the beginning of this episode, it can negatively or positively impact your income and your living by tens of thousands of dollars, depending upon the amount of business you write, regarding what your average premium is per case. That's powerful. And I know, Cole, you take a lot of pride in that, man.
For sure. This is something, again, may not be exciting to talk about, but sometimes you have to be willing to put your system over your, I don't want to say selfish, but yourself. Maybe we get emotional. And I can tell you so many stories of walking into a house thinking these people do not have money. There's 18 dogs and cats and it smells horrible. And, they have an antenna on their house, not because they're paying for cable, but because they're stealing it from their neighbor.
With those old 40-foot satellite dishes in the backyard. And
you walk out with $100 monthly. I've walked into situations where it was a final expense lead. This place was a mansion. I mean, if I live in Ohio, so property's pretty cheap. But I mean, if I were in California or Arizona or Texas, I mean, this place was probably $1 million plus property. And I'm thinking, why did they fill this car out? They don't need my help. Turns out they're like foreclosing. They're almost on Medicaid. They have no life insurance. They have all these medical bills because of the crazy medications they were taking. And again, walked out of there with premium where I was like, there's no way I'm getting anything. And so when you step into the situation and you're already making judgments before having communication and seeing what the need is, just keep in mind and simplify this thing so much. Miss Mary sent this card in for a reason. Go talk to her and see what that reason was. Sometimes you can help her, sometimes you can't. But you need to be ready for when you need to take your shot. I believe it was Abraham Lincoln that said that. Sometimes in life you only get one shot, and you better be ready when that shot comes. Now, in life insurance, if you're buying leads, you get lots of shots. But you want to make sure that you're prepared to handle all these situations. And following a system, I think, is so important to being able to plug into something where you don't have to reinvent the wheel and you don't have to change with the winds. You can plug into something and be consistent and still be passionate and still be you. But at the end of the day, if you follow a system similar to this, I promise you, your numbers will be higher than industry average. You will make more money than the average agent. You will actually make a career out of this instead of being the statistic of the multitude of agents that fail because they're not willing to plug into a system. I'm not saying that my system is the best way to do something, but I do think it's pretty good. And so hopefully this is something that's been helpful for you to plug into. Maybe the highest number that you're showing is $60 and you find yourself getting a lot of $30 monthly premiums. They'll pay that $60 a lot of times if that's the lowest number you show them. You just got to be willing to do it. Put your game face on. Sometimes you have to fake it till you make it, where you're stepping into this thing and you're freaking out. They're like, they're gonna kick me out of their house by showing this high a premium. Some of you are thinking, yeah, I don't think $60 is that much. Cole, you should show higher. Well, show higher premiums if that's you. As long as you're following a system and being consistent, there's no limit to the amount of money that you can earn by helping people.
Well, it's a good topic. I don't think the mundane is typically what we do. We try and get that out of the way because sometimes it's the most important. They say the devil's in the details. So I will throw this message out now. I know that this year we will continue the trend of we're not looking to recruit or anything like that, but I will say that after the road show, there were a few there that have found us, found this particular show. We will tell you that if you're a part of the 140% mirage that's out there, or I got suckered into low contracts with free leads. If you need assistance, if you are one of those, Cole's talking about the 92% or about to be the 92% that fail out of this business, we are a phone call away. We are a message away. And we'd love to have a conversation with you. We'd love to help you fix whatever that issue may be in your business. Is it an activity issue? Is it an attitude issue? Is it a mechanical training issue that can be fixed? What is it? We'll help you figure that out. We welcome that. And Cole McCoy, appreciate you as always, brother, man. We'll get 38 off the ground next week.
All right, buddy. Have a good day.